All glories to Amrita and Dhanvantari, the Supreme Divine Healers. May they bless us with a profound understanding of the subject matter of the day, which is the subject matter of demons. What are demons and how to deal with demons? So first of all, we can try to do a very rough definition between Sura and Asura. So the Suras are said to be the godly beings and the Asuras the ungodly. The main difference being that the Suras seek their happiness in conjunction with the will of God and the laws of God, and the Asuras basically independent of the will of God. They may follow even many universal laws, maybe even pious, but they don't have the will of God in their interest, and also they don't believe in an eternal supreme controller to which they are subordinate, or they don't accept their eternal subordination to a supreme entity. So why is this? How does it come about, and how does that relate with our psychology? These are all some pretty interesting thoughts that make a big difference how we understand these things, how we deal with these things in our everyday life. So first of all, it is of course based in a kind of ignorance or misunderstanding, forgetfulness of our true identity, which is to be a particle of the sun ray of God's consciousness. So, which is very prevalent, however, I think that consciousness has evolved from matter, which is of course completely impossible, illogical, etc., which can be understood by many scientific examinations, because, to put it simply, the effect never exceeds its cause. So if I think that I am something else than original consciousness, primeval consciousness expansion, then it may lead to different consequences in behavior and consciousness. If I am not all-powerful, all-knowing, and full of all potencies, as is the definition of Bhagavan or God, Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashya jnana vairagyaschaiva shannam bhaga itingana, full of 6 opulences, beauty being the root, then power and fame, actually power, then all riches, virya, samagrasya, yasha. Yeah, then you have fame, which means that all that the Supreme does is for the benefit of all, and he's famous for that, which no other being can claim to that extent. And then you have Gyan and Vairagya, which are like the attributes that emanate from that fame, which comprise the impersonal Brahma Jyoti aspect of the Supreme Person. So, that is the Supreme Conscious person. And we can see that no creation happens without a person who has got the intelligence and the power to create something. So these are just some background thoughts to keep in mind. Now, if I forget that I, as a conscious entity, am not a Supreme Conscious entity, but a relatively impotent entity, and that the Supreme Entity is always omnipotent, so I can never become that Supreme Entity, because the simple fact that I'm at some point in time experiencing the subordination to another energy which is not under my control, being the body, the mind, and all the world that we find ourselves in, means there is a Supreme Controller and I'm subordinate to some or other of his energies. So now, if I find myself in that position, I may like it or not. It depends how I accept that reality or not. If I accept that reality and I endeavor to assume my real position of being a subordinate conscious particle, then I can belong or come into the category of Sura. And if I rebel against it, if I try to invent some different philosophy or put myself into a position that is not my true position, then I would be in the category of Asura. Now, none of us, if not completely pure and liberated in the constitutional position of a loving particle of the Supreme, can claim to be completely free from those independent tendencies, rebelling tendencies, etc. So the usual human being condition, especially in Kali Yuga, in which we are now, in this age, has to deal with multiple natures, aspects stemming from different impressions from many lifetimes. So, looking back at the history of our existence in the material world, at one point we have forgotten our real position due to the influence of material nature and developed certain ungodly, unsurrendered, unreal identifications, and thus following decisions, mental processes, ungodly intelligence, so to say demonic intelligence. And now we're in the position that we are experiencing all these different tendencies in our vehicles, be it the gross vehicle, the gross physical body, and our subtle body aspects, in the prana, in the sense intelligence, and in the deciding mind, and in our provisionary identities, which we identify with, the personas that we identify with. So they are all mixed up between godly and ungodly tendencies. So, if I identify ungodly tendencies, which I understand to not be in accordance with my true divine loving nature, then how will I deal with that? If I try to take a very conservative approach of exorcising the demon, killing the ego, etc., then we may find that this leads to a lot of resistance, internal conflict, and if you want, war. And I haven't personally seen anyone for whom this has really worked. Definitely it hasn't worked for me, but I see the tendency in many who want to either ignore these aspects or eradicate them, exercise them, etc. Some of these tendencies or approaches. So the question is, what happens if you do so? There is some identification with those tendencies. You can call them parts of the personality system. And many of those identifications are from past lives or from our youth, and they are related with experiences that we had in the past from which we drew wrong conclusions or unreal conclusions. Misunderstanding due to a smaller understanding of reality and our true position. So let's say you are God conscious now, you try to be a loving servant of God, etc. But in your past life you were in forgetfulness about this, and you tried to find happiness in all kinds of different ways in the world without fully considering your true divine nature and relation to God. And in the course of pursuing that happiness, due to karma, meaning the reactions to your own actions, there was some frustration. Someone cheated you, which means it is a reflection of you cheating someone else. And because you were hurt by that cheating, then you hurt that person back. And so there's a very unloving exchange going on. Now, you couldn't resolve that situation because of a lack of consciousness, and there was a lot of pain, unresolved pain, and so that memory went into the subconscious mind and you carried it on into this life. Okay, now you may not be aware of what happened in the past life, but in this life, maybe in your youth, maybe when you were a child, some similar situation happened, so that you can come to a more real understanding, a more expanded consciousness. So it's actually a loving arrangement by fate, which is controlled by the Supreme Consciousness and the agents, meaning the planets, the demigods, etc., to arrange a situation which is similar to an unresolved understanding from previous experiences, which is called the fruit of karma. So you were young and some very unpleasant things happened to you, and you couldn't resolve that situation by pure love consciousness. Then again, that was locked away in your subconscious mind and protected by managers. Those are mental parts belonging to the buddhi, the sense intelligence, that try to manage our life in such a way that no unpleasant situations occur, so that we don't have to deal with the unresolved pain. And because we have locked away these experiences, also many of our potentials belonging to the energies involved with those experiences are locked away. Now, in these energies, there is it's a shadow. You cannot see them because they are related with painful experiences that your sense intelligence is protecting you from by those manager functions. And these energies still exist in a subconscious state, and they have their own life, meaning they are still going on, but in a subconscious way. These energies don't go away. There's just three ways that we can interact with energy. The first way is to claim it for enjoyment, exploitation, etc., for our own self-interest. The second is, if that is not possible, then we may try to reject that energy. That is the mukti tendency. First tendency is bhukti, second is mukti, liberation. I don't want to deal with it, it's not me, etc. And the third, the only real way of dealing with any energy is to see that it's an energy of the Lord and it's for the Lord, so we become a channel to use that energy for the pleasure of the Lord, the source of our existence. So, the energy still exists, but in that case she may be rejected and developing her own subconscious life, and in some cases maybe even some entity, meaning some ghostly entity of the same, relating to the same subject, to what that person did, what we did, what happened to us, which is unresolved, can also influence us through that subconscious impression. The point I'm trying to come to is that if we demonize such tendencies, let's say, example, there is the tendency to lie to someone. Okay? So someone has tried to cheat us for their own benefit, which means we must have done the same. So that would be a demonic tendency, if you want. But by demonizing it, we cannot learn the lesson. The point is, if something happens to me and it's painful, it is because it is not love and it is not in alignment with the divine nature, the love nature. So that's why it's painful. Now it happened to me, and if I don't have the pure consciousness, the virtuous consciousness, the remembrance of God and my soul remembrance in relation to God, then if I'm identified with my mental and physical vehicles, I may react in a very protective way, not understanding the greater context of the situation, which is the karma phala, the fruit of my own action. And it is actually just asking me to forgive, to come back to love. So there is an external demon, if you want, the person who is cheating, who is reminding me that I've been cheating myself. Now if I demonize it and I insist on punishment, that will not help me in any way. The only solution is to understand that love is the solution. So the situation is asking me to forgive. If I understand that this person is doing it because of a lack of love understanding, a lack of their real identity, which is to be a loving particle of God, that's why that person is behaving in a cheating way to fulfill their egoistic motives. So this situation is asking me to forgive by showing me what's inside me, what I haven't forgiven myself. So forgiving the other person, forgiving myself for having done a similar thing is the only way to remember what is my true identity, what is the real behavior, which is to be honest and loving and caring, to not make a distinction between one's own needs and the other person's, to not put myself in a superior position, etc. So forgiveness and love are the main two aspects of dealing with the so-called demons. But if, on the other hand, I don't want to deal with my own pains, which have been locked away in the subconscious mind as exiles, then they will turn into demons and harass me, either in the night or in the day, by uncontrolled behaviors, unhealthy behaviors, basically unloving behaviors, behaviors that are not good for my body, not good for my mind, and also in relation to other people. So how to deal with those demons is to understand why they behave as they do, because they are mental parts in other entities or in myself, which stem from a false identification with the mental and physical bodies, a lesser understanding of the relation with the world which is created. They don't understand that they are created, what is their relation with the Creator and the world and the energies, be it gross or subtle energies. So from this lesser consciousness, then these demonic tendencies originated. Sorry. Yeah, so how to deal with those demonic tendencies? I think this is already a long video and I will review it. I think my body is giving me a signal to stop here, take care of my voice cords, and then I will do a second part on what are demons, how do they originate, and how to deal with them. Thank you for your attention. You are invited to check the description of the video for the links to our web shop, booklets, t-shirts, etc. Please support our soul services. Click the like button if you like the video, share it for the benefit of all. May the Om Love be with you. Jai Radhe Shyam.